Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa Life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The Spa and Spa Life, the SPA, is for seek power always, that power within you to do your deeper work in the world. I am so inspired to have our new guest here on the show, who is Kellie, a survivor of sex trafficking, here to share her story, experiences, and hope to spread awareness and educate people of the realities of sex trafficking. With so much misinformation out there, Kellie wanted to share her truth in hopes that there will help people to be more aware of people within their family as well as out in the public who could possibly be victims. Kellie is dedicated to sharing ways that anyone can help if they see a victim. Kellie, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I just want to do a quick little preclude because I know a lot of people listen to the show when they're in their car. So, if you have your children, this is a pretty, intense topic. You might want to listen to this in private. Of course, we want people to age appropriately, be able to have conversations with their children, obviously. But wanting you just to give you a heads up that some of these topics may be a little bit heavy. So Kellie, where would you like to start as far as, just sharing with everyone? I know you have your hope as far as people being able to recognize and see the vastness, but also get at the truth of the matter.
Well, I guess the best place to start is just my own personal experience. I was sex trafficked by my biological parents for 26 years. It took me to escape. It wasn't some big magical escape. I just went to a battered women's shelter with my children and got a restraining order. And I haven't spoken to them. I've been gone for over 12 years now. And shortly after that, I was then kidnapped and taken by another man, and he sex trafficked me as well, which I was able to escape that too. But I think the biggest thing is there's just this misconception that, they're going to put something on your car and snatch you out of a parking lot, but it's more likely than not somebody that that is targeting you. Right. So.
And is the second person, was that somebody you knew?
No, I didn't. He came into my work and just got to know my weaknesses. I basically told him that, I had just left an abusive situation. I hadn't at the time I didn't even know what sex trafficking was. And I, told him a lot of my deep secrets, and he just used them to figure out every way he could to improve my life. And he spent months grooming me before I actually went with him. I actually didn't even know that I was kidnapped until about 2 weeks after he had taken me.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because it felt very voluntary at the time. He felt like a friend, as part of that mm-hmm. grooming process.
Exactly. He was the answer to every problem that I had. And it was a conversation he had with his cousin that made me realize what was going on. His cousin said, don't take her to see her family because they won't let you leave with her. And then I was just sitting there like, oh my God, I've been kidnapped. Right. So, and it took years to realize that what he did was sex trafficking. I just thought he was forcing me to do things with other people, but I didn't know what the actual term of it was until many years later.
Right. I've heard from several victims that they have multiple experiences. They have kind of the initial trauma of being trafficked. They may, find a way out, but then they find themselves back in it in some way. What do you think is behind that pattern of multiple abuses and multiple people involved?
Oh, I mean, I'm still dealing with it. They have found a way to collect a debt from me and garnish my husband's wages. And it's legal the way that they're doing it. And it's in such a methodic way that I can't even fight it. So I think that's just how the rings are. They don't want to let go. I mean, my parents, from talking to some people that actually knew how much their sex traffickers charged, I can guesstimate in 26 years, they made over $85 million off of me. So it's very profitable to keep me and to keep me alive. I'm worth more alive than I am dead. So, but I think they just keep wanting to drag you in because, either know too much or, it's a very hard cycle to break, especially when it starts at such a young age. I mean, I can remember when I was maybe 12, 13 years old and I was stuffing envelopes, which I now know was stuffing ads. And I just thought like, wow, I can't wait to move up in my dad's business and take over. And they were grooming me my entire life to be a sex trafficker. So I think that's one of the biggest things is it's so hard to stay away and it's very hard to stay no contact and it is impossible to stay hidden.
Right. Well, and I think the part that is hard for people to understand is that when you grow up into it and when you're a child, you think this is just how it is with all families, right? Because you don't know the difference until you either spend time with other families or you have some perspective of something different that, again, like you said, you don't necessarily know the term or what that looks like. So what are some of the things that you're doing now that is different, that you're protecting yourself from this not ever happening again?
For me personally,
Yes.
I have restraining orders in place. I've lived in very soon, it's going to be the 20th state in 12 years. Every time they find me, I just move. Lots of name changes, address confidentiality programs, not using my personal information, not using my real name, and just trying everything I can do. I have about 7 safety plans that I just run through every time something happens. So there's a lot of other things that I don't want to actually give details because I don't want people to know is the bad people to know is a possibility for survivors to do to protect themselves. But it's a constant like cat and mouse game. I just have to think like them and then be 3 steps ahead of them, but they're always ahead of me when I figure out what's going on. Like this new thing suing me for hypothetical debt I didn't even know was a possibility, but it is.
Right, right. So, if a survivor is listening to this podcast right now, what would be a piece of advice that you would give them?
Um, my number one thing is I stopped caring. I just, um, I still want to stay safe, but I've kind of accepted the fact that my life is always going to not be. So I've kind of found a way to find stability in that. As crazy as it sounds, moving every couple of years is my stability, but it helps that my husband is a veteran. So when we first got married, we got used to moving a lot, but it's just think like them. You know them better than anybody else does. So if you think like them, then you can get ahead of them in the game. And they have this saying that I was taught in support groups that I just love. And it said, if you're playing a game of catch and you stop throwing the ball back, what happens? Game over. So I just make sure that I never throw that ball back. Like they just served me with a lawsuit over the weekend. I could have cried. I could have fought back. I could have done a lot of things, but I just don't. It happened. It's going to happen. And I'm going to pay the lawsuit because fighting is giving them power. So that's, I think the best thing is just stop throwing the ball back as hard as it is. Find your way to stop that.
Right. Well, you've talked, before. I mean, you and I have spent a lot of time, talking about just the path in many different ways. And one of the things you talk about is having choice and making sure that you have choice and building that in. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I believe everybody has a choice. When I share it with sharing on TikTok, I had a woman that actually commented that she didn't believe me and my story. And I said, it's your choice. I'm not sharing for anyone to believe my story. Everyone has choice in life. So I like to use that for other people as well as myself. I mean, it's a little bit crazy to make a decision now that I'm out of the life because I have to think about my husband and my children and is this safe? Is it this? And 1,000 other questions, and I work through them all and make sure that I'm making the best choice for me, whether it hurts other people's feelings or not. And it's hard to break the cycle of not feeling like it's selfish to put up those boundaries and enforce them, but it's really hard to do, but you have to do it for yourself.
Right. And how does a survivor actually build the trust and knowing who to share with to help them get out of it? Because, I mean, we've all heard those stories that, they went to a teacher or they went to a first responder and they were somehow involved, right? And,
Yes.
that is, crushing for me as a retired police officer, because I was not around that directly, where even though I worked undercover prostitution and things happen, I was always around officers that wanted to help and that anyone could have gone to them and would have gotten that support. But in any type of, organization, there's going to be those that you can't go to. How can you help some of these survivors who have people like the woman on the TikTok who says they don't believe you, and that's probably one of the biggest deep-seated fears of not being believed? How is it that you connect with people that actually do believe you and can help you?
Well, the number one thing as for getting help, honestly, as horrible as it sounds, I think the victim is the only one that can save themselves. It's just there's too much and the rings are too embedded in so many different things. And I just my escape wasn't a long thought out plan. It was the decision was made on Tuesday. Wednesday, I got accepted into the shelter and I went to the shelter the next Thursday, like that exact Thursday, the very next day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, I found the fight in me to finally leave. And it was like when I went to other people, there were so many bad experiences. I wasn't believed. My parents had their little script that, they always had to explain away anything I said. So it was just relying on myself and finding the strength within me. And looking back, it was always there. I just didn't know how to find it. So, but as for trusting people afterwards, it just happens. I don't know like how to even explain it, but it was like when I met my husband, I just knew I could trust him. It was, and when I started talking to you, I knew you were someone that I could trust my story with, probably because of the thing that we talked about. But it's, you just know, and it's just trust your gut. Your gut will always tell you, because it's when you survive this kind of thing, you get, I hate saying it because it sounds like Liam Neeson, but you get a certain set of skills from the surviving. And one of them is I can spot a sex trafficker a mile away. I know exactly how they are, exactly how they act, the things that they say. So it's just basically trust your gut. Your gut will tell you if something's off.
Right. Well, and that takes us into the general public who, it's kind of interesting. It's almost like we live in this world of duality where there's a whole group of people who are involved in trafficking, know the signals, know, what that world is. And then there's a lot of people that have no idea this actually exists, right? And whether that they live in a bubble or that they've just not been confronted with it or that it's been right under their nose and they didn't recognize it, right? So what are some of the things that you can help educate the general public who hasn't experienced it and to have more awareness so that they can actually do something about it?
Some of the signs are just the littlest thing. There was when I lived with my husband, when he was stationed in the army, I would go outside every day and talk to my neighbor, and we would hear a little girl screaming at the same time that we went out. And the mother would always close the window. And everyone just assumed that she didn't want to go down for her nap, which is what I assumed for a while. But after a little bit, I started noticing different cars that parked out front of her house. And I called CPS, made a report, and it turned out the mother was sex trafficking her. So it was just that one detail of that car. Like if I hadn't said that in my report that I made, I don't think they even would have gone out and investigated. And even when I went on sales, when they were done out in public, they would change my outfit, but they never changed my shoes. So it's always like the smallest details that can make the biggest thing and the biggest difference in helping someone and in spotting it. And I always say, it's better to make the call and be wrong than be right and do nothing.
Right.
And more likely than not, if you feel like you need to call the authorities because you feel like you see a victim, the police are going to feel the same way and see what you see that's making you feel off about it. So I
Right.
always say don't ever approach a victim. Always just call somebody out and just hope that they trust the police enough to talk to them. A lot of times they will, and sometimes they won't. But it's kind of the same thing as addiction. You can't really help them unless they're ready. They have to be ready.
Right, right. Well, and I know just, because of my work in law enforcement that, every time you call, there's an incident report. And even though maybe a formal report's not taken, there is, a documentation who they spoke to. And, those start building up. If they start seeing that there was, 10 contacts in a week, that's going to really, trigger someone once it gets to the detectives of like something's going on here, right?
Exactly.
There's not just going to be a bunch of random calls. It's kind of like where there's smoke, there's fire. And when you got several people thinking, oh, well, my one call's not going to make a difference, whereas that one call may make all the difference, right?
And it does. And I mean, outside of sex trafficking, my ex-husband was very abusive. And there were so many calls that came into our apartment that the police knew the second that they got there to put him in handcuffs because they knew that there was that history there. So yeah, even one call can make a difference because you don't know if there's 30 calls that happened before yours or I mean, you can see it with any kind of mass casualty event that happens. I mean, there's like 1,000 911 calls that call in, or even just a car accident. So you don't know how many people are actually calling at the same time. And the more calls, the more details, the better.
Right. And how many things do you think that things that are misreported as either, even though there is like maybe say domestic violence or child abuse or kidnapping, how much behind that is actually trafficking?
It's hard to tell. I think there is a very big lack of reporting. I escaped when I was 26 and I was 33 when I knew that it was sex trafficking. And I found out because I actually read a woman's blog whose daughter and herself both were kidnapped by my father. And I had talked to her years before that, and she had never used the term sex trafficking. I don't think at the time that we first corresponded that she even knew it.
Right.
But the lack of knowledge and the lack of awareness, I think, plays a huge part in the lack of reporting. So me personally, I think familial trafficking is way higher than they put the statistics at. I would not be surprised if it was up to 90%, but a lot of people, they have the misconception that it happens in underground tunnels, on apps on phones, and people just snatch you out of a Walmart or a Target parking lot, which it does happen, but it's very rare. It's so much easier for the trafficker to groom their victim, and it's a lot more easier to do it to a family member, especially your own child, because I mean, they did it to me as early as, from the stories that I can put together, about 2 or 3 years old, but I would not be shocked to find out that it happened before that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and with that prevalence and, so many times these things start happening generationally, right? Because, if you grew up that way, it's like that's the way you think things are. And so they can perpetuate. What are some of the things that you're doing to break that cycle? How are you having conversations with your own children to have them have awareness, but also not scare them?
Well, oh, my daughters, they are special children, let me tell you. They know a lot about internet safety. I've made some, I hope they don't see this. They'll be so mad. I've made some fake accounts and tried talking to them. My one daughter gets pretty graphic and yells at people. She is terrifying. I don't know if I should be proud or not, but I am proud. My
Right.
oldest daughter just ignores them. My son, if somebody, he's 7, if somebody, tries talking to him, he just chucks his phone at me and tells me, here, take care of it.
Mm.
So, but
Good.
definitely internet safety is the biggest thing. But it's just an open dialogue. There was a girl that reached out to me on Instagram because she was being targeted and she wanted me to make the report because she was scared that her parents were going to take her devices and take her social media away from her. So I did make the report, but I told her, like, I cannot talk to the police for you. I can't give them permission. Like, I will talk to your parents though. So I did. And I spoke with them, and, I said, she sent me the messages and she's scared. So I think that's the big, huge thing is we can't punish our kids when they're targeted, and we can't have them be more afraid of losing social media than actually being targeted by a sex trafficker on social media. So I
Right.
think like that open dialogue relationship with your children is so important. I mean, I have it with my son. He knows I was trafficked. He doesn't know all that it entails, but anytime that he sees something and he's like, Mom, is this one of those people like your mom and dad? So it's just talking about it. It's a hard topic, but
Right.
it keeps them safer the more they know.
Right. And so when you say that your son knows that you were trafficked, what does that mean to him? Like what how would he explain that?
To be quite honest, I haven't asked him, but there's an anime, The Promised Neverland, and they mentioned the word human trafficking in it. And he said, Mom, this show's about what they did to you. And basically it was just kids being given away from a foster home. So he knows there was a sale involved. I just don't think he knows what happens after the sale.
Right. Right.
And he has autism, so I mean it could mean so many things to him, but I think he thinks that my parents just sold me to do work for other people. He doesn't understand the
Right.
sex part of it.
Right. Well, I think this is, like you said, it's all about having the conversation, and that your kids, realize, hey, who are safe people to talk to, who are things that, you can talk to your parents about and be able to have those kind of conversations. And I love the distinction that you have about that, kids can be able to feel comfortable enough to report, but not feel like their whole life is going to be taken away from it. So.
Yeah, and like I said, especially, my kids, they come to me, their friends come to me, and my niece came to me, so it's like you have to make them feel comfortable enough to come to you and tell you like, hey, this person's saying these things to me. Because traffickers, with TikTok and Instagram and everything being video now, they're grooming victims they already have in their control to try to recruit others. So my daughter was talking to a 13-year-old girl that she thought was trying to groom her. Luckily, she wasn't, but she's like, Mom, this girl makes me feel a little uncomfortable. And, she felt comfortable enough to talk to me about it, but it can be anyone. It can be 7-year-old kids they're using as recruiters now.
Right, right. Well, I remember when, I was doing a lot more interviews with survivors, and I was talking to a lot more people in my circle about it. And, just in the conversation of it, I actually had a friend that, the more we talked about it, she's like, oh my God, my sister tried to traffic me. Like, it's just like, because you don't always have the language as a young kid about what's going on, you don't necessarily put it together as that's what that is.
I actually had another survivor that I was talking to, and she's like, yeah, my ex-husband used to sell me to his friends. And I'm like, did you hear what you just said? And she's like, oh, that is sex trafficking, isn't it? I'm like, yes, it is.
Yeah, that's where the brainwashing comes in, and how it can affect on such a big level. So
I'm sorry. I was just going to say,
go
everywhere on social media, I mean, it heavily implies that there's just one sale. Like, you're auctioned off and then that's it, but it's not. You're sold over and over again, multiple times a day by the same people.
Right, right. And so how do you manage fear for yourself, and what do you recommend some tips to help manage the fear of it?
Well, I have bought a lot of cans of wasp spray. They are very similar to mace, except they shoot 100 feet away. mace, you have to be about 5 feet away. So I carry wasp spray almost everywhere I go. It's in my car, it's by all my windows, on my doors. So that way I know if somebody comes in, I don't have to get right up in their face. I can just, shoot them from far away. But I have my safety plan, and I think of all the bad things that they could do, all the ways they could enter my home, all the ways that they could enter my apartment building, because we picked apartments. Every time we have an apartment, we get one that has secure doors that you need a key to get into. And all my neighbors have pictures of my parents and pictures of other people that may come. So I already have attached to my phone number with I called the non-emergency dispatch. And once my phone number pops up, I give my name, the description of my traffickers, my phone number, my address. So it's just getting ahead of the game is how I feel the safest. I mean,
Right.
they've approached me out in public before. Not them, but the people they've sent after me. There was a woman that came up to us and approached us at a grocery store that tried to take my son. And I was I was ready to take things the way I needed to, but I got the manager involved and got her taken out of the store. So it sucks because you always have to keep looking over your shoulder, sleep with one eye open, but it's the cost I pay to stay safe. I'd rather stay safe than get a full night's sleep sometimes.
Right, right. And some people may look at it in terms of being like overkill or paranoia, but one of the things that I found is, because I'm also somebody who knows the escape routes, have trained my daughters, know what I'm going to do in any type of situation. And having that actually allows you that peace of mind that you know what to do, right? That whole preparation in hopes that you don't have to use it, but that knowing that you can do it, that's part of empowering yourself. That's part of having choice. And that's living from a more safe perspective of knowing what your options are and what that looks like. And that being the case, we're hearing so much more about the cyberbullying out there. We're talking about social media and talking about how people can literally, get at you from your device in your hands. What's your thoughts on that? And what do you think some of the remedies of that can be?
I've experienced a lot of cyberbullying, most of which came from fake accounts, some of which I knew were my parents. Um, I set up, they have keyword filters on almost every social media site that you can set up now. And that way you can put certain words and it'll automatically block the comment. So that has been a lifesaver for me. But with the cyberbullying, there's a lot of people out there that don't want my story being told, whether it's former clients, my parents, or people that just don't want people to know the truth about sex trafficking, or, other people that just have a little bit of jealousy. I don't even know. But I experienced it a lot. I've had like the one woman, I don't know if she really didn't believe me or if she was just saying that to try to get me to stop. But I just keep pushing through, and I just try to keep my online presence as private as I can. I don't use my real names. I don't ever have my location turned on. I use a VPN whenever I open up my computer, or open up my phone, or anything like that. But the cyberbullying has gotten way out of control. The more arrests that there are, the more the cyberbullying targets me. And honestly, I think it's somebody that sent somebody to try to silence me. So I don't share my story. So I don't say my clients' names or my parents' names, or I just get too scared to go to the authorities. I really don't know what their end game is, to be quite honest.
Right. So for people that would want to set some of those protections within their phone against being bullied themselves, what would be some of those top key words that they could put in there to block?
I think it depends on each person. Like I would set up jail, abuse, children, kids, just different things that I know, different words that I know would trigger me. or upset me. A lot of people asked if my children were sex trafficked or not. They talk about my children a lot, which I don't confirm or deny what may or may not have happened to any victim, because it's not my place to say. So I would have those types of things set up, but they really pushed hard on my kids. They always bring up my children when they're bullying me. On
Right.
the most recent place was Twitter that I was dealing with it. And I mean, I've taken down accounts and started new ones. I mean, I just do what I have to do to feel better. And
Right.
it's going to happen. But for keywords, you just think of what your triggers are and the things that are going to upset you. And sometimes, I mean, I did a video about gaslighting, and people used something, it had to do with Star Trek and four lights. I don't even know, because I'm not a trekker, but
Right.
it clogged the whole thing that I was trying to do. I actually had to have Star Trek and four lights put as a filter, because I was tired of deleting those comments, because it was just taking away from it, which
Right.
honestly, that could have been sex traffickers doing that, just trying to take away from what gaslighting is. It was a woman and a man that were talking about an apple, and he says it's an apple and she's like it's a banana, or he says it's a banana and she says it's an apple, and it just shows gaslighting so perfectly. I think it was one of the videos I had taken down a lot. I reposted it a lot because it got mass reported all the time.
Right. Well, and that's part of the, distraction and, being able to not get the real messages out there. And that's why it's important to have these kind of conversations, to let people think of things from a different perspective. And, especially people who don't hear about some of these things, have a hard time believing that these things happen at the level that they do. And once they actually hear these type of incidents, you can't unhear it, right? So when you're out in the world and you start seeing things, you may start thinking twice about what it is that you're seeing, and be able to actually do something about it. And that whole exponential effect of the more things and the more people out there that have it, and you've got the more eyes trying to support, then people aren't out there alone trying to just row their boat on theirself and not have the support of the greater community who can really help with that. And so on a lighter note, because we were talking about how we create our environments, I know you've moved around a lot. One of the questions I always like to ask my guests is that we have different experiences in our kitchen versus our bedroom or our office. What is your favorite room in your home right now?
Oh gosh, it's my bedroom. I have MS, so I spend a lot of time in bed. But I have a very, very nice king size purple mattress. My husband just bought me an exercise bike so I could do some exercising. And I have began what my best friend says, hoarding turtles. I have about 5 turtles now. I saw a TikTok video of one playing tic-tac-toe, and my husband got me one that day, and it somehow grew to 5, but he's building me a tank so I can get 6, because I like even numbers. But my bedroom's my safe space. It's where I spend most of my time. The office here, I like it. I've tried to make it as friendly as I can, but I also homeschool my son here. So it's like, it's a classroom, it's an office, it's where I work. So I like my bedroom. It's where I relax. I have pictures hung up that just help me remember the path that I put myself on and things like that. So definitely my bedroom. It used to be the kitchen, but I can't cook anymore because of the nerve pain from the MS. So I've turned my bedroom into my sanctuary.
Nice. Well, and I think it's important for everyone to have a sanctuary in their space, a place that inspires them, makes them feel safe, creates that experience of, lightness every day that they have in their life. So, well, I know that our listeners are going to want to be able to stay in contact with you. How can they do that?
Well, right now, my Facebook is currently banned for another 2 weeks, but I do have the Unbroken podcast. I believe it's facebook.com/Unbroken podcast, or the Unbroken podcast. I also have Instagram, which is unbroken_podcast. My link tree is in there, so you can see all my social media. My email's there as well. So I'm dying to get out of the Facebook ban. It sucks. I don't even know what triggered it. Someone was mass reporting something. I don't know quite what it was, but I made a joke about a storyline of a TV show, and apparently that's a no-no on Facebook. But
I think if you've not been censored in some way, then you're not having bigger conversations that,
yeah,
allows people to have deeper conversations, right? And it's very
it's like
interesting
the rite of
time.
passage. It's the rite of passage. I mean, you're not serious about what you're talking about if you haven't been banned from at least 2 social media platforms.
Absolutely. I get it. So, as you know, our theme for this year is people who are being a force for good. How are you being a force for good in the world right now?
I'm trying to share my story and spread awareness and just break down all these crazy conspiracy theories. I mean, I try as hard as I can to just educate, but it's like pushing a rock up a mountain doing it all by myself. So, that's why I started my podcast, so I could reach more people and just talk about the truth of what sex trafficking is. Because if you hear the truth about it, you'll look at the whole Wayfair thing and be like, yeah, no, that doesn't even make sense. So that's basically what I've been trying my hardest to do, is get the truth out there, so that way people aren't looking in the places sex traffickers want them to. They're looking where it's actually happening.
Right, right. Well, and like anything, you want to be investigative, right? Get curious, start asking some deeper questions, and
Hmm.
notice where the distractions go. And this is not just for trafficking, but just life in general. If there's a lot of buzz in an area, something, you got to look at, okay, what am I trying to be distracted from? Deciphering what the
Exactly.
truth is there, right? And to know that, by looking at that bigger picture, you can distill that truth and then be able to make some more impacts about it. And if you start
Yeah.
noticing people are talking about things and then they're getting banned, it's like, okay, what were they saying that actually triggered them to be banned? Because there's always a grain of truth in something. You just have to find it.
And it's crazy. It was like last year, I was, I had my ancestry tree that I was going through, and I woke up and my ancestry account had been hacked into. My Amazon, Hulu, everything was hacked into. And I texted my sister and I said, something really bad's about to happen. And I told her all of that. And within the hour, news broke that Ghislaine Maxwell had been arrested. And I was just like, yep, there it was. So
Right.
it's, every time something like that happens, I know that it's going to happen because all of my accounts have been hacked into. It's sometimes as stupid as they changed the answers to the security questions in my electric account. Like, it's so subtle that it's not enough that I can arrest them, but it's enough to send me the message that I need to stop talking or
Right.
don't say what they don't want me to say. But I just called my parents out. I call them out a lot. I'm so done sometimes. Like I said, I just don't care. I stopped trying to feel like I needed people to believe my side of the story. I know what my
Right.
truth is, and the ones that matter are going to believe it. But there is a
Absolutely.
lot of distraction out there. And I can always tell, like, and all of my friends are like, okay, so what's really going on? I saw like what all the TikToks are about. So what's really happening? And I'm like, Ghislaine Maxwell's trial date was set for the 29th. I was like, so it's a lot of people are starting to realize what like are being able to spot the distractions. So
Right.
that's one of the bigger things I like to do, is to help, because it is part of awareness. I mean, sex trafficking awareness does not stop with the last sale. It's a lifelong thing that we have to go through. So it's definitely very important to make sure that you don't get caught up in the conspiracy theories and distractions, because all that does is take away from real victims and survivors.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Kellie, I just want to thank you for your bravery and sharing your own experience and, some valuable insights for people to look at and to, if anything, open up people's eyes to see what's happening around them. Notice the distractions, right? There's a lot happening right now in this world, and it may not be what you're hearing directly. In fact, it most likely is not what you're hearing directly out of the television,
Hmm.
which is called programming for a reason. You want to be able to do your
Exactly.
own research and be able to look deeper, so that you can make good, clear decisions and have those safety plans in place for yourself and your family. So thank
And
you so
there's
much.
There's a quote that I love, and it says, "Those that scream the loudest have the most to hide." So if someone's louder than everybody else, it's probably not for the reason you think it is.
Good advice. Absolutely. And for our listeners out there, whether you've experienced trafficking yourself or someone you know, please, share this message. That way it helps people know they're not alone. It allows people to get more involved, to be part of the community, to help those who are true victims, and to have more awareness in the world. And if you have any questions, please, in whatever platform you're listening to, put in the comments. Either myself or Kellie would be happy to answer any of your questions. If you've not subscribed, please do that as well. Our 5-star ratings really help get the word out there, and this is really what we're trying to do, is to get these messages out there so people have more truth, have more things to be able to decipher themselves in the world. So until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.